start off to our next section of the broadcast, our last final one, then Youth STEM 2030. This is a truly fantastic initiative, and we are joined live by the most international and diverse group of speakers, the biggest group of speakers for any single program over the Global Biodiversity Festival, and I think that is certainly very fitting. So Youth STEM 2030, a social enterprise empowering youth to use science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, to tackle the world's biggest challenges. So they're shining the spotlight on today on some of the young change makers protecting our planet, joined by youth leaders from around the world. Mhairi, who's our main hostess today, noted we've got folks in Scotland, Thailand, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Nigeria, and England. What an incredible diversity of our speakers. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mhairi in just a second to introduce her colleagues, highlight some of the amazing work that people are doing, not just in the future, but right now. You guys are such positive change makers, and I'm so thrilled to be able to host you for this broadcast to kick off our afternoon session. So Mhairi, McCann, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome into the broadcast.
Thanks so much, Jesse, and thanks so much for having us here today. Hey everyone, my name is Mhairi McCann, and welcome to Youth STEM 2030 session at the Global Biodiversity Festival. As Jesse so wonderfully introduced, I'm the founder of Youth STEM 2030, and we're a social enterprise on a mission to empower youth globally to use science, technology, engineering and maths to tackle the world's biggest challenges. For the next hour, I'll be your host, and we'll be exploring and celebrating the impact that young people are making towards climate change and protecting the biodiverse life on our planet. We'll be exploring everything from educating and empowering communities to innovating solutions to young people's views on conservation and biodiversity, and why it's vital that we as youth have access to the tools and support to make change. I see every day in the work that we do at Youth STEM 2030 that young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, we're the leaders of today too. And STEM can often be such a key part to our solutions to tackling the world's biggest challenges. And that's why at Youth STEM 2030, we are creating those opportunities, support and platforms that empower young people as change makers in STEM. So today, we're really proud to be working with the Global Biodiversity Festival to give young people a platform. And I'm excited to say that I'm joined by 5 incredible youth leaders from around the world. You're going to hear from Aminta Permpumawewat, the founder of Youth Mentorship Project from Thailand, Dolatzan Berkadulov, a youth innovator from Kazakhstan, Saida Mamadova, founder of Green Azerbaijan, Yazid Salahuddin Mikali, an advisory panel member at the IRIS Project, who's joining us from Nigeria, and Alfie Davis, who's the life sciences reviewer at Youth STEM Matters, joining us from England. So if you're watching us live today, we'd love to hear from you in the chat, and we'll be answering as many of your questions as we can fit in. We're also active on social media, so please do share your thoughts and tag us at Youth STEM 2030 on both Twitter and Instagram, as well, of course, as at Global BioFest. So with all that said, let's get started. So our first speaker today is Aminta Permpumawewat. Aminta is a high school junior in Thailand with a passion for STEM and climate action. She's the founder and project manager of Youth Mentorship Project, a youth organisation dedicated to teaching underprivileged students in Thailand the values of sustainability and resilience. In September last year, she represented Thailand at the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition pre-COP26 event in Italy. And she's also the senior outreach journalist at Youth STEM Matters, which is our youth-led scientific journal. So thank you so much for joining us today, Aminta, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Mhairi, for the very warm welcome. So let me just share my screen in a few moments, and then we'll begin the presentation. So today, I'll be talking about sharing my approaches towards tackling climate action and sustainability through my own project called Youth Mentorship Project. So the main topic that I'm going to be talking about is basically youth empowerment, the path towards sustainability. So how I actually empower youth comes from education. And why education is such an important factor is because I believe that it's the most important key for our progressive world. Especially as we move towards an inclusive world, we need to empower people from all communities. And I've always believed that since education is the foundation, children, it's the prerequisite for us to be able to access other opportunities in our life. However, the sad and unfortunate thing is that there are still many children around the world, and especially in many rural areas, who lack access to quality education, whether it be due to their socioeconomic status, ethnicity, or their race. So it's important in building awareness and understanding of these issues that we can lead towards a more sustainable world. And I believe that in order to achieve SDG 13 or SDG 15, life on land, and also climate action, we really need to start with SDG 4, which is basically quality education for everyone to access. So that is why I came up with this project called Youth Mentorship Project, which, like Mhairi introduced, is a youth organization that recruits high school students to be volunteer teachers to teach STEAM. And this is science, technology, English, arts, and maths to underprivileged students. Now, these students come from a variety of backgrounds, including but not limited to being from stateless communities, indigenous communities, or also children of migrant workers, or even disabled children. Now, what we do at this project really includes a very holistic view into teaching, because we use a transdisciplinary approach where children learn from multiple perspectives on real world issues. And most of these times, we concentrate a lot on climate change and also sustainability. So as our world, we have the increasing risk of the effects of climate change, then this means that we have to be even more resilient and more prepared to tackle all of the effects that will be coming in our world. Therefore, in my project, Youth Mentorship Project, we integrate sustainability into our lessons. For example, as you can see in the pictures right here, we have a lot of, in science class, we teach science experiments for children to be able to filter water with natural resources like sand or gravel. And it really makes them be engaged with the class, because they can learn and they can do hands-on experiments that they can truly be engaged in and have fun doing. And at the same time, we also have like a lot of art projects to promote sustainable art and recyclable art that these children can learn more and also share with their friends and are able to bring home and share with their parents as well. And one example of this activity is particularly on Thai Environment Day. So Thai Environment Day is on the 4th of December. And every year, this is a day where we celebrate the environment. So last year, we organized an activity on that day to teach children particularly about the environment. So what we did was we went to these schools and we promoted climate action. And we really focused on things that were tangible, things that these students could be able to use in their daily life. For example, making tote bags that they could paint with their own styles. They could make the picture of a world or anything that they want. And we also made like trash cans for students and the children to separate the trash. And we actually put these trash cans in their own classrooms. So this meant that after the project, the students were able to use that trash can truly. And we see that when we go back to the schools, all the teachers tell us that the students still use the tote bags every day and the trash cans are still being used. So we see that the impact is being seen with our project right here. And these are more pictures of the students really enjoying all the activities that we go down and we go do with them. So besides from climate action and tackling the climate crisis and sustainability, we think that at Youth Mentorship Project, in order to truly be sustainable, in order to truly foster this mindset of being a global citizen, it's very important that we address other issues as well. For example, the digital and technological disruption, demographic shifts, as well as equality movements, because we think that all of these issues are interlinked and they are interconnected on a global scale. Therefore, we must address all of them at the same time to be able to develop global citizens in the 21st century and also looking forward into the future towards the 22nd century as well. So this is a very brief overview of my project that I've been doing called Youth Mentorship Project. But now many of you might be asking, what can you do to be a part of the climate movement? So personally, this is a project that I've started with my own true passion of really wanting and really believing in education and wanting to give others the opportunity to have access to quality education. So, one key takeaway is basically for all of youth who are listening right now, whatever you want to do, just believe in that one thing, have a passion, and maybe start your own project that comes from your own understanding of the issues around you. Because if you have things that are project based or area based, it means that you truly understand the problems that are going on, then and you are more likely to solve those problems, and you can contribute to your community in your own way. And other than that, you can also be involved in youth organizations or youth networks. For example, last year, as Mhairi said, I represented Thailand at the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition event in Italy. And this was a very good opportunity for me to gain a lot of new friends, a lot of new knowledge on a lot of these things, and for me to build a great network, especially with me, I was able to meet Saida, who's also going to be speaking later today. And other than that, there's also many other youth networks, for example, Fridays for Future or even Youth STEM 2030, where you can meet a lot of like-minded people and work with youth all around the world who have similar interests to you. And we can all contribute to climate action because every single action matters. And even though we're youth, we still contribute, and it's still our responsibility to do something for the planet. So lastly, I just like to conclude by saying that no matter who you are, what age you are, whatever ethnicity, you can do something for the planet, for the biodiversity, for our environment. And basically just take action wherever you are in the world. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, then you can contact me at these details. And if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them after this session. And I'll be passing the microphone back to Mhairi right now.
Thank you so much, Avinta. And you're doing so much incredible work in Thailand and also beyond Thailand too. And I think that it's something that can seem really daunting when you start. So there must be challenges along the way. So how would you encourage other young people that are maybe getting started in their journey towards making change to kind of overcome those challenges that inevitably, I'm sure we'll both have experienced them come up along the way?
Yes, of course. So I think that you really have to believe in what you're doing. There, of course, will be a lot of challenges for you, whether it be access to funding or even just handling all the different things, managing your time and all the obstacles that will come. But I think that if you truly have a goal that you want to achieve, and it's an actionable goal that you can truly, it's not far-fetched, but it's a smart goal that you can achieve within the time that you've set, then I think that if you have that clear goal, that clear aim, then you will be able to achieve it if you truly have resilience and the passion to do that.
Absolutely. I think that was great advice there. So thank you so much, Amanda, for being part of our session today. Keep up all your amazing work. I'm sure you will. And yeah, just thank you for joining us. And I hope that everybody watching has kind of both learned a bit about what they can do, but also from your journey as well. So we're going to go on to our next speaker now, who is Dolatjan Berdikulov, who resides in the city of Nur Sultan in Kazakhstan. He's a 17-year-old who's currently finishing junior year in high school. Dolatjan is highly passionate about solving the world's pressing issues in an unusual way, which is why he's founded various projects in the areas of ecology and poverty alleviation. One of these projects is to innovate bioplastics, which is what he's going to share with us today. So Dolatjan, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi everyone, very excited to be here. Let me share my screen. So I hope you see it. So I'm one of the founders of the startup called Bioplastic, and actually we produce eco-friendly bio packages. So in order to understand the entire project, let me tell you the story from the beginning. In 2020, me and my teammates were three, decided to dig into the problem of plastic contamination, as we're living in the city of Nur Sultan, and which is informally called the city of flying plastic bags. So the city was filled with different type of plastic bags, and we were interested in that. Conducted a small research, and as a result of it, discovered that plastic bags account for 40% of the plastic contamination in the world. So our team understood that we need to act immediately, as also plastic is burnt in our city, which detrimentally affects the health of the citizens. So this immediate action really drive us towards creating this project, and we were hoping to save the biodiversity in the world, as plastic in the oceans really kills fishes and all the animals in there, because plastic releases a lot of toxic materials and elements. And at the beginning, we actually wanted to create a system which is called Photobioreactor. And this actually is a cube which fosters the growth of algae through providing all the auspicious conditions for it. And this project worked, and currently it's in our school. The thing is that it absorbs carbon dioxide from the air and releases oxygen. So it absorbs the harmful gas and releases the one beneficial to the environment. We wanted to solve the problem of burning plastic in our city. And one day, when I was responsible for this experiment, I forgot to turn off the photobioreactor, and it stayed there for a night. And on the next day, the table on which it was standing on was filled with a certain liquid, and really I felt guilty for that, because it's the project which we worked on for a long time. And just not to lose hope, we decided to conduct one more experiment and test that liquid, because we really haven't seen anything like that before. And after several tests, we understood that this material has some qualities that can be used for creation of a bag. So we added some chemical elements, conducted even more experiments, and eventually discovered a material, an innovative material, which is called bioplastic, and the liquid is called biomass. So there are actually many alternatives to this material in the world, but we modified the original one. So here are the qualities that our material possesses. It's solvable, so it dissolves in water within 5 minutes, which is this quality is also called biodegradable. Then it can bear up to 5 kilograms, and the most interesting quality is that our packages are edible. So whenever a package is wallowing on the street, any animal can pick it up and consume it without harm to its organism, because our packages contain vitamins as well. So as a result, we created this sort of packages. We at the moment we can manufacture them in high quantities, and we provide them to 3 eco stores in our country, in our city, for free, just to get customer feedbacks and maybe improve some qualities, remove or add them. And this is how our project works. So the main takeaway from my experience is that you don't need to give up when you encounter a failure in your life, because this failure might actually lead to something even better than what you had before. Because I don't think that the photobioreactor which we created would have such a big impact on the world as our bioplastic bags now have, because these bioplastic bags are an ideal replacement for polyethylene bags, which are currently used en masse in the world. And as I mentioned before, they are very harmful to living organisms and can destroy our world's biodiversity, as they force animals to migrate to not the most favorable conditions, and they also kill animals. So this is why we're trying to solve this problem, and in the future we will attempt to use bioplastic not only for packages but for bottles and other plastic materials to have a really eco-friendly and sustainable world. So if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you so much, Jan, for sharing so much about your project. And I think that there's a real kind of lack of recognition sometimes that young people can create meaningful innovations to tackle global challenges, including the ones that you're tackling. And would you maybe be able to share a little bit about perhaps whether those are kind of barriers that you'd encountered as people said to you, oh well, you're only 17, how can you make a difference, and what advice would you give to other young people that might be encountering people maybe telling them that you're too young to make a difference?
All right, and actually to receive a recognition in our city, at least in our city, we had to present our project in different kind of competitions. And the thing is that we were the youngest presenters in there because we're only 17 years old, and while other startup founders were 30 or 40 years old, so substantially older than us. And when juries were listening to our presentations at the beginning, they were kind of biased, like what thing can these guys create? And when they really immersed in our project, into our idea, they understood that we can really make change. And this is the main barrier that we encountered, that that our juries or just people didn't take us seriously.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, and I think it's such a short-sighted way of looking at it, because there's so much innovation that young people can bring. Maybe we don't have the years of experience, but actually we can still bring a whole lot. And actually, sometimes not having that experience allows us to think outside the box, to think differently about things. So I think that if anybody has any other questions from the audience, feel free to share them in the chat. But I think that it would be great to hear more about what your plans are for your project next. What's going to happen next with it? Where do you plan to take it?
All right, we're looking for funding in order to produce our packages in large quantities, because at the moment we're only providing them to free storage, which is not really a substantial effect on tackling climate change and biodiversity loss. So this is why at the moment we're trying to improve our material, receive customer feedback, and get that final MVP, which we can later present to other people who can provide substantial funding to us to help us develop further and use our materials, and use our bioplastic packages in other cities of Kazakhstan. And later we will try to use them in other countries as well.
Amazing. So if anybody is in the audience that might be able to help with that, then your email was on the screen throughout your talk. So please do get in contact with Jan if you can help. We need so many more people out there that are uplifting young innovators and researchers who are making change. So thank you so much, Jan, for your talk today, and all the best with your project going forwards. I'm sure that this is only the beginning for what we'll see from you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
So next, we're heading to Azerbaijan to hear from Saida Mammadova. Saida is the founder of Green Azerbaijan, a pre-COP26 delegate and a keynote speaker. With Green Azerbaijan, Saida and her team organise environmental safety campaigns. To tackle climate change, she collaborates with British, Italian and US embassies and the UN in Azerbaijan. Saida delivers youth perspectives to officials and urges them to take climate action as a speaker and facilitator at local and international conferences and events, as well as doing TV and social media interviews. Saida was also one of our brilliant facilitators at the 2021 Youth STEM Summit. So it's lovely to see you again, Saida. We've actually not spoke since then, but thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away. I can't wait to hear your talk.
Thank you so much for your welcomes. I'm so happy to be here today. And let me share my screen so I can start my talk. Okay. So hello again, everyone. I'm Saida. I will be speaking about young people's role in climate action today. But I would love to clarify first, what is climate action? Climate action is joint efforts to strengthen resilience and adaptation towards climate change and reach the sustainable way of living. I would also love to clarify what is sustainability because I come across a lot of confusing definitions. Sustainability is our way of living and our meeting us meeting our needs without jeopardizing the lifestyles and eliminating the access to the needs of future generations. And the goal is to for the sustainability's goal is to reach the climate. We need to reach the net zero emissions by 2050, otherwise we will be in the risk of setting off the irreversible chain reactions that will be out of our control. And as I said, sustainability is not jeopardizing the future generations lifestyles. And here comes our problem because we are that future generations whose lifestyles are being jeopardized and whose opportunities are being limited. And that's why we have no time to wait for the problem to be resolved. Young people need to be maximally involved and engaged in solving the climate changing and biodiversity loss problems because that directly influences our futures. And today I'm glad to say that young people are being heard more and more, and we are being involved in the decision making processes and the important steps towards our futures. And as I said, we need to be maximally involved and we need to make change and make the impact. And on the slide, you can see 9 key mindsets that are necessary for us to make a meaningful change and impact in our communities. But when we settle down these to 4, it comes to firstly, it's communicate with your community and do for your community and focus on providing and serving the needs of your communities. It's lead with empathy and make it happen. It's taking the steps every day. As Aminta said, it's little or big, it doesn't matter. Every change counts. And also, it's chasing the opportunities. Young people have to chase the opportunities created for them in order to be involved in the processes globally. And when I say opportunities, I say international conferences, researches, initiatives, projects. It may be little local initiative or international project, or it may be some conference or competition. It's all these all are ways for us to get engaged and find our ways to make our voices heard. And when it comes personally to my climate action, it all started with founding Green Azerbaijan. As Mhairi already said, together with Green Azerbaijan team, we organize environmental safety campaigns, usually in the regions of Azerbaijan, and we organize online and offline workshops to raise awareness among young people and encourage them to take climate action. Also, in the September of last year, for my extensive climate action in Azerbaijan, I've been selected to represent my country in a UN climate change pre-conference in Italy, where together with global leaders like Roberta Cingalani, Mario Draghi, John Kerry, we've been in dialogues with them together with young global climate leaders, and we've negotiated to create a youth pact that was later presented at COP26. And in Italy, I had a chance to meet a lot of amazing peers who are making change globally, and Aminta was one among them. I was infinitely happy to meet her and have communication with her and many other young people there in Italy. And also, I am giving speeches in conferences and events of British Embassy organized by UN Azerbaijan, where I either deliver young people's perspectives and our suggestions and our demands for climate action to officials of my country, or I raise awareness among young people and encourage them to take climate action and call for the urgent actions. Also, in the September, in July of this year, I will be traveling to Houston as BP Global STEM Academy scholar, where we will investigate the STEM application on climate change. We will go through lab experiences. We will visit the labs and museums, and we will be gathered there with, again, globally active young people, and we will create the projects and present them at the UPenn. And as I said, the young people's voices are being more and more heard. And I would like to share some organizations that are having wide opportunities for young people. It's STEM 2030. It is UN. It's UNDP. It can be embassies in your country. It can be local youth organizations, or maybe even global youth organizations. Aminta already shared once. And I would like to share the quote that has become viral, and it's a quote from UN Climate Change Pre-Conference this year. It's, "There is no planet B, there is no planet blah, blah, blah." It's just that we need to act. We need urgent actions. We need no more blah, 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 because we basically have no time for that. And I would love to conclude with, you can control climate change. And by you, I mean governments, organizations, initiatives, businesses, young people, just citizens and individuals. Everyone can control climate change, and every step and action matters. Doesn't matter it's big or small steps, every step counts.
Thank you so much, Saida. And I love how you balance the kind of despair that we can often feel as young people trying to take
Absolutely.
action against climate change, with also the hope that there is a better world that's possible and that we can make a difference. Do you have any kind of advice that you would give to other people that are maybe kind of struggling with that balance just now? Because it is a really, there's no denying it's a big issue, but also if we are kind of so paralyzed by the issue, it can be really difficult to take action.
Yeah, it is. It is sometimes very difficult to hope for the best when it's like we already see no progress. But I can say that there is a progress because our today's goal is 1.5 degrees by 2050. But when we look back, there was no 1.5 degrees goal 10 years ago. It was 2 degrees, and there was not even a word about 1.5 degrees goal. So by this, I want to say that there is a progress, and every young people are part of the progress we've come to, and we need to continue so that we reach our other goals. And every time I hear about it, I kind of go in that despair. I think about that 1.5 degree goal, and that really does help.
Yeah, there's such a need for as many young people as possible to get behind this, because it is really hard. as young people to be continuing to drive that forward. And so we need everybody, no matter whether you're young or old, no matter what you're interested in, we need everybody taking climate action.
Absolutely.
And your work at Green Azerbaijan is
only
doing
joint
that.
actions.
Exactly. And your work at Green Azerbaijan is really helping make that happen. So thank you so much for speaking today and for all the work that you're doing. It's been lovely to hear more about your work. So thank you so much, Saida.
Thank you.
So we're now going to hear about a fantastic initiative to support young change makers, the Iris Project, from Yazid Salahuddin Mhairi. Yazid is an environmentalist and climate justice advocate with an interest in policy advocacy, resource mobilisation for climate action, and the intersection between climate change and health. He currently works as an advisory board panellist at the Iris Project, where he works to mobilise young people to apply for the Iris Prize and mentor them towards sustainable implementation of their projects. So Yazid, thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. Today I'm going to be talking about our project, the Iris Project, and we are enabling young people to protect and restore nature. Just like Aminta and Saida said earlier, we recognize that young people have amazing ideas. They are doing great when it comes to ensure taking climate action, when it comes to protecting nature, but then they are faced by the challenge of resources to implement their project. And that is where the Iris project comes in. We enable young people to protect and restore nature by funding their ideas. Next slide. Good. Basically, on this presentation, I'm going to be talking about why now, why do we need to take action, and I'll be giving overview about the IDIS project and about the IDIS project, then the prize itself, and why should you apply as young people. I often have conversation with young people listening to how bitterly they complain about lack of access to funding to implement their project. And when you listen to these ideas, the ideas are super cool, but then due to lack of funding, they can't implement their idea. So why now? Why do we need to take action? Humans depend on nature to survive. Yes, nature provides us food, nature provides us so many things, and yet some of our activities are detrimental to the nature. And that's why it's important we take collective action. And to support the collective action young people are taking, that is where the IDIS project comes in. Young people are the ones taking action, talking about raising conversation about climate change, engaging policymakers to ensure that they implement policies that would mitigate climate change, and they take action in their own local way they can. But yet they are faced with the challenge of funding, just like I said earlier. Now let's talk about overview of the IRIS project. We work in partnership with Global Green Grant to fund and provide funding and mentorship, because aside from funding that we provide mentorship for young people to ensure sustainable implementation of their project. So in collaboration with Global Green Grant, we fund young people and mentor them to ensure the sustainable implementation of their project. Now, about the IRIS, as you can see, the name of the project is the IRIS project. The IRIS project was founded in the name of Iris, who is a committed young person working on environmental sustainability, protecting nature. And she died in an accident at the age of 15. Her full name is Iris Goldsmith. This project is in her memories to support thousands of young people out there like her who have amazing ideas when it comes to nature protection and restoration, and fund their ideas. Now, built by young people. When we say this project, at the heart of IRIS projects are young people, because we recognize what young people can do, and globally, young people voices are being recognized more and more now, because they prove to know what their demands are. They prove to know what they want. So at the heart of IRIS project, young people are there to advise and ensure the needs of young people are met. Good. The IRIS Prize. The IRIS Prize, we have three different kind of prizes. Often people ask, who are these prizes meant for? These prizes is aimed at supporting people with new nature restoration and nature protection idea, and the grant that is for them is the seed prize, which are for people with the new idea. It's a 5,000 US dollars grant for people that are starting out in the environmental space who have amazing nature restoration and protection idea and generally climate action idea. The next one is the 10,000 grant, just to help people who are already doing something when it comes to nature restoration to scale up their idea. And the third one is the main IRIS prize of the 15,000 US dollars, which will be provided for the initiative that works in line with the goals and objective of the IRIS project, who are already working on their idea, and to ensure that we are going to support them and mentor them. One of the most important things that will make young people to apply for the IRIS project is the mentorship. Young people are starting out in the environmental spaces and they struggle to know what exactly they are fighting for. This IRIS project also aims at mentoring young people. The winners of these prizes will be given a mentorship of worth 10,000 US dollars of mentorship. They will be placed under mentorship, and they will be guided to ensure sustainable implementation of their project. Now, to round it up, how can you apply? It's as simple as possible. You can just go to irisproject.org that's our website. You can check it out, check our eligibility criteria, and go ahead with your application. And I'm very sure if your ideas are amazing, though there is no idea that is not amazing, all your ideas towards protecting nature and restoring nature are absolutely amazing. But the ones that work in line with the aims and objective of the IRIS project will be selected. Now, the question of, do you only support new projects? No, we support projects that already exist, and the new project, just check our eligibility criteria and go ahead with your application. Our deadline is June 14. This is to inform you that we are still receiving applications from across the world. This is me telling young people who have amazing ideas, who deem this opportunity fit for their ideas, submit your application and the IRIS project is for you. And if your idea is able to scale through, you will receive a mentorship worth of 10,000 US dollars with young people. You work with us, the IRIS project advisory panelists, who are also young people working from across the world. We have panelists from across the world who are doing absolutely amazing in their country. At this juncture, I would stop to answer a question if at all there is any.
Thank you so much, Yazid. And I think that was such a kind of comprehensive overview of the IRIS Prize, which is such a good opportunity for young people to get involved in. And it's so important as well that young people are right at the core of that. And too often that's something that does get missed. Could you share a bit more about why you think it's important that young people are not just...
What's the question again? Come again?
Of course. Could you share a bit more about why you think it's important that young people are not just the ones who are receiving the grants, but are also actually making the decisions and helping to shape the whole of the IRIS project and the IRIS Prize?
Good. There's this general quote that there is nothing for us without us, that young people always say, that we all always say as young people. We are young people. We are at the heart of the project. We know the needs of young people like us, and we know the challenges young people face. Personally, from experience, starting out in environmental activism about 5 years ago, I faced a lot of challenges when it comes to accessing funding. But coming on board and at the IRIS project, I was able to advise the decision that will be made there to ensure that young people needs are met and to ensure that there is inclusion when it comes to providing the grants for young people. So that's basically why young people are at the heart of the IRIS project.
Absolutely, that is so important, and it's so important that things like this do exist for young people, because there are barriers to young people being able to access kind of more widely open funding, but having this funding, it'll actually allow young people to kind of really scale up, or even just start the work that they want to do, that they've got the ideas to do, that in many cases they're already doing, is so important. So as Yazid said, applications are still open for the IRIS project, and you can get those in by the 14th of June. And there's options there, whether you're just getting started on your journey or you're already making change. So thank you so much, Yazid, for joining us today. And everybody who's watching in the audience, please do get applying for the IRIS project. Thank you, Yazid.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And last, but by no means least today, we're welcome to the stage Alfie Davis. Alfie is a year 13 student who is studying A-levels in biology, psychology, geography and music. And next year he'll be studying zoology at university. Alfie's particularly interested in mammalian ethology and physiological ecology, and is a life sciences reviewer at Youth STEM Matters, our youth-led scientific journal. Outside of STEM, Alfie is an open water scuba diver, swimmer and singer. So welcome to the stage, Alfie, and take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'll just quickly share my presentation. Brilliant. So as I said, my name's Alfie, and I'm going to do a quick talk on taxonomic bias within zoos and conservation, which is a majorly important topic throughout biodiversity. So to start things off, just a little bit about me. As Mhairi said, I'm a college student. I currently study biology, and next year I'll be studying zoology down in Plymouth, which is really exciting. And I've recently done a extended project qualification dissertation on the ethics of mammal captivity. And as a huge part of that, I've been talking a lot about taxonomic bias within mammal captivity and conservation as a whole. And of course, I'm a life sciences reviewer at the Youth STEM 2030 journal, and also an open water diver and self-proclaimed zoology nerd. So first things first, so I just ask that you imagine a zoo in your head, and imagine one you've either been to or seen in the media, and what species do you see as being represented within that zoo? So think of just a couple of animals in your head. Think about what you stereotypically believe to be in a typical zoo. And some of the ones you might see and you might imagine in your head are the ones that might come up on the screen now. So there is a huge mammal bias in zoos across the world, particularly in larger zoos. And that's mainly because of the social desirability towards seeing mammals and seeing as they're more favored and more exciting to see in zoos around the world. And that could be really problematic in terms of taxonomic bias. And in fact, when you type into Google a stereotypical zoo, over 75% of the search results turns up with mammals being represented. So it could be a huge skew in taxonomic representation, and it could be a real problem for biodiversity and conservation. So a little bit about taxonomic bias in zoos. So taxonomic bias is the idea that certain taxa are favoured over other taxons. So that includes particularly mammals, vertebrates and birds are hugely skewed towards and represented in zoos across the world. And that can be a really, really big issue for conservation and awareness of these more underrepresented species, which include things like invertebrates, insects, mollusks, which really don't have that level of representation and awareness within zoos. And around 44% of the most commonly represented 50 species and animals are mammals, and with the rest being made up of mainly birds and fish, which can be a huge issue for conservation because there's such a lack of representation and awareness, particularly in public education and engagement with these animals. And it means that there is a lot of under-conservation and a lack of research into these animals, which just is equally important to the biodiversity across the world. So as you can see in the diagram there, that the proportion of species assessed in the red list are mainly skewed between birds, mammals, and amphibians compared to those insects and mollusks, which means there is just that huge skew, not only in zoos, but towards conservation efforts and research as well, which is mainly targeted towards those amphibians, birds, and mammals, which can be really problematic. So it can be an issue that's addressed by social demands and preferences for certain animals, which can be one of the main reasons why there is such a large taxonomic bias. And it's important that we ensure that there's an equilibrium that's created of representation of species across the world within zoos to promote their engagement opportunities and education, to sort of present that awareness and education about conservation of these underrepresented species, which is really essential that we boost their sort of awareness throughout the public and create more research opportunities and conservation opportunities and protection for these animals, which is just important to the world's biodiversity. So within conservation, there is a huge taxonomic bias as well. And this can be another real issue because, as you can see in the diagram, there is a huge skew towards conservation efforts and mentions in the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. So there's a huge research and conservation skew towards birds and mammals particularly. And there's a huge underrepresentation and a shortfall in conservation and research towards less represented or under aware of other species, so things like insects, arachnids, and invertebrates too. And this bias can really lead to an underprotection and under-awareness of these species, which can threaten their conservation status if not well represented, researched, and protected, which is really important why throughout zoos and conservation, we ensure that we represent all animals just as much, and particularly those which are underrepresented, because it can be a huge issue if they aren't researched fully, aren't fully protected, and the public aren't fully aware of those animals and don't engage with them in zoos. It can be a real problem for the future of their conservation throughout breeding programs and in situ conservation programs from organizations working with zoos and education programs as well. And to ensure this conservation of biodiversity worldwide, we do need to have that wider range of species for that protection, research, and awareness. So it's really important that in zoos and in conservation work throughout research, that, as you can see in the diagram there are a huge shortfall in some particular taxa compared to others. So mammals, birds, and fish in particular have a much higher representation than others. And it's important that we generate that attention for underrepresented and under-researched species and promote that public engagement to boost conservation efforts in zoos, outside of zoos, within organizations, to ensure the global protection of biodiversity across the world. So thank you for listening to my short talk on taxonomic bias. If you've got any questions or anything, do let me know. Yeah, but thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Alfie. And that was such a great example of how young people can, once becoming interested in an issue, then communicate that as a really great way of making a difference. So what advice would you give to others who are maybe wanting to make a difference and want to maybe do that through communicating science?
I would say if there is a species that interests you in particular, get involved, get researching it, sort of make awareness of these underrepresented species, because it's really important that we promote biodiversity as a whole and not skewing towards particular taxa or species. And it's really important that especially young change makers, we research and look at these different animals and explore, because there's so much more we don't know about them, and there's so much conservation work that needs to be done to ensure the protection of their biodiversity.
Amazing, and so right. There is so, we see these iconic species that do rightly need protected, but there are so many more that are kind of unheard and unseen, that we as young people, and regardless of which age you are, can champion to be able to help with their conservation. And if anybody is going away and taking Alfie's advice and doing some research, then this would be a great chance to plug the fact that you can then submit your what you have found through your research to Youth STEM Matters, or Youth-Led Scientific Journal, where Alfie and also Aminta are volunteers. So we can't get out without mentioning that. But thank you so much, Alfie, for sharing that and for really raising awareness of such an important issue. So that is bringing us to an end of our hour-long Youth STEM 2030 session here at the Global Biodiversity Festival, which is really sad, but we've been on quite a wide-ranging tour of young people's research ideas, innovations that they are doing to be able to tackle biodiversity loss, to tackle climate change, and from all over the world too. I think that there's so much that they've already said that could be said so much better than I can summarize just now. But there was a question that came through the chat about how to get started, and I think that what our speakers today have really highlighted is start with the issues that matter to you. Figure out what you're good at, because there is no one way of making a difference. There's so many different ways that you can make an impact, whether that's taking action in your community, science communication, empowering youth as leaders, scientific research and innovation, and that's just the start of a list. And we need everyone to be able to tackle issues like biodiversity loss and climate change. So if you take home one message from our session today, take it that young people, when they're given the right opportunities, support and platforms, can make a meaningful difference to tackle the world's biggest challenges. So all that's left for me to say is a big thank you to all of our amazing speakers, Aminta, Dolitjan, Saida, Yazid and Alfie. Everybody who's joined our session today, thank you so much for joining us. And also Jessie and Joe at the Global Biodiversity Festival for all your help in organising this session. It's been awesome to be part of.
Oh, it's been awesome to have you. Again, the YouTube viewers are amazing. You guys had a big fan section cheering you on YouTube. Your work is so incredible. Youth STEM 2030, all the independent projects. Kudos to you all. You are what this festival is all about. So thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your passion, and for taking part in the Global BioFest. As I said at the beginning, a perfect beginning to our last section of this incredible festival. And I look very forward to following all your careers over the next 2 years. You are absolutely doing an unbelievable job. So thank you all so much for being here, guys. Awesome. Well, we'll say farewell to you. Aminta, Saida, Dolitjan, Yazid, I'm sorry your connection's a little iffy right now, Alfie, and we will keep the train rolling. So I will say farewell. Mhairi, you are like the best hostess of all time. If you ever want to come back just to like coordinate the whole BioFest, you are welcome as the flowers in May. But yes,
thank you so much.